Fellas, let's move on. Babyface heel, my favorite topic on the Sports PSP pod. Now, for those who may not know what babyface heel means in wrestling language, babyface means a good guy, hero. A heel is a bad guy, villain, and a tweener is someone in between. So I come up with a list of athletes or celebrities. And me and the panel, we are going to decide whether they are a babyface, heel, or tweener. Now, for this first athlete right here, it's NFL. It's an NFL player. Richard Sherman.
Tweener. I'll say he's a tweener because sometimes, he speaks out of turn about, some of the current players. I can understand your assessment. That's your job, but you got to be careful because you were a player and you didn't like the way Skip Bayless had spoke to you and spoke about you at one point, calling you a thug just because you were talking stuff to Tom Brady and things of that nature. So you have to be careful, and not to mention some of the things that happened off the field during, certain collapses that he had. Um, Overall, look, tweener, he's a likable tweener. He's not one of those hateable guys. He talked crap all during his playing days, but he could back it up. He was one of the best corners in the league. At one point, it was him and Revis Island in a two-man race. So, man, he was the spearhead and the mouthpiece for one of the greatest defenses in the history of the game, that being the Legion of Boom. So yeah, and I understand that got up under a lot of people's skin. You talking, and he produced one of the best sound bites, arguably in the history of football. That was one of the best sound bites in the history of football. Man, that was everywhere. I mean, even President Obama was talking about it when they went and visited the White House. Will you try me with a sorry receiver like
The
Crabtree?
NFC Championship game.
Yeah. Don't you ever talk about me. so so hey, not look, not bad enough to be a heel, but a lot of controversies. He talks smack with a lot of, even when he was playing, he was going back and forth with Patrick Peterson, talking about who the best corner in the league. You're gonna have those discussions.
Darrell Reeves as well.
Darrell Rivas as well. You know, had a lot of different discussions about
But you
different.
also kind of like how the way he went after Skip Bayless early on. Remember when he was on ESPN?
Yeah.
In
Look,
my 24 years in life,
look.
I'm better than life than you. And even though it kind of it sounds shocking, but at the same time, you also got to look at it from the standpoint Skip Bayless is no empathetic or sympathetic figure when it comes to sports media, considering the things he said in the past. Ask Troy Aikman.
Yeah, and not just Troy Aikman. Some of the questionable things he said during that DeMar Hamlin debacle. So,
Well,
yeah,
not just that. I mean, Dak Prescott, and of course, of all people, you criticizing another athlete for being baptized.
yeah. So yeah, and look, I'm gonna just be real. I'm gonna go here slightly, but not step over the line. How are you calling me a thug and I'm a Stanford graduate?
Exactly. Well
You calling
educated.
me a thug and I'm a Stanford graduate? That's just weird. He's a thug. I'm a Stanford graduate. What are you talking about?
Because they look at the fact that he comes from Compton, Cali, and they don't take into account that he came from the University of Stanford. Smart, has degrees in his name. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But again, you, as we always say with Black people, champ, you can't do what the white men do.
So, yeah, but the thing is this: everybody's talking. To Richard Sherman's point, I'm gonna just say this: you can't tell me I can't talk shit on the field.
When
This is
I've backed it up.
this is my safe haven. And guess what? If I'm not allowed to talk smack out here on this field, regardless of Tom Brady being the media darling, that's my job to beat him. I understand y'all mad about him. Y'all mad about me beating the Christian Laettner of football, maybe even greater. Probably, I'm kind of speaking from his perspective at a certain point, but it's kind of like when UNLV used to face Duke, or the Fab Five used to face Duke. I understand these are your media darlings, but you're calling him a thug, and I'm a Stanford graduate. That's weird as hell. And guess what? I'm on the field. Everybody talks shit. Phillip Rivers talks shit. Tom Brady himself talks shit. So guess what? Let's stop with calling somebody. I don't like I said, I didn't understand that logic because everybody's talking smack on the field. Hell, as an offensive lineman, I used to talk smack. I had one of my best offensive tackles in there, and I knew he had the game. Guess what? Hey man, we gonna ring your bell all day to dawn today. We got something for you today. But yeah, it's just, and I think that was weird of Skip Bayless, and I think only Skip Bayless did that. Nobody else was sitting around here calling that young man a thug. And like I said, you're a thug because I talk smack on the field. You're kind of interesting for saying that. I'm not gonna use certain words. I'm just gonna say interesting.
I agree. Tweener applies with Richard Sherman because he is polarizing, but I don't think he's too much of a tweener that people hate.
No.
Kind of in some ways, kind of reminds me like 50 Cent a little bit.
Yeah, it's
Because when he talks his shit, he backs it up though. So you can't go wrong with somebody like that.
yeah, and he's an intelligent man and he knows what the hell he's talking about. But like I said, you got to be careful.
50's an intelligent man, and look what he's doing right now.
I mean, look, man, look, I'm gonna just be real. You can beat a person more than with intelligence than you can with your fist. And I'm a former boxer. So you beat somebody with your mind rather than your fist. The pen is they say the pen is mightier than the sword for a reason, or in certain cases a videotape. So
All right, another football player, Jason Witten. I say babyface. No off the field issues. Class personified. He's used his platform to speak out against domestic violence.
mhm.
Um, he's definitely going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Unfortunately for him as a football player, even though had a great career, longevity, the only knock you can say about him, he was never considered the best tight end during his time. It was Tony Gonzalez, Tonio Gates, and then later on Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham and Kelsey and others. But outside of that, babyface, beloved figure. Like I said, he's been outspoken against domestic violence. He's used his platform. He tried taking the same route as Tony Romo did as far as broadcasting. Remember, he used to join Monday Night Football. That didn't work out for him. But still one of the beloved Dallas Cowboys. Still one of the best tight ends. Tremendous blocker.
Yes.
And he's somebody you can count on fourth down situations. He can move the chains. Imagine if Jason Witten had
Jason Whitlock playing tight end. The only end he going to is the end of the line at Wendy's.
well, if he had speed, his ass would be running to the buffet line, but that's a story for another day. But Jason Witten, I apologize, is a baby face. Great guy, seems like a great husband, great father, beloved figure. Definitely going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I don't really think I need to add any more, man. Babyface.
The real reason why Jason Witten was never considered the best at a certain point is because he played in the greatest era of the tight end. The 2000s was the greatest era of the tight end. That's why I was looking down PSP.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, there was no shame because again, he was overshadowed by
Tony,
Gonzalez and Gates. So,
yeah,
and plus, there's no shame to that because of the offenses that they had. Antonio Gates had the luxury of playing a little bit with Drew Brees and then later on with Philip Rivers.
yeah,
Meanwhile, Tony Gonzalez, he did have Trent Green though. And then later on, after that, he went to Atlanta for a little bit. He did play for Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
And then in the 2010s, Tom Brady had Rob Gronkowski, Drew Brees had Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
So you had some prolific tight ends at that point during Witten's career, but he was a hell of a blocker.
Yeah.
He was consistent as far as putting up numbers.
Yeah. He was. And like I said, he played it during the greatest tight end era. It wasn't just him; those are just the big names. During that era that he played, you had Jeremy Shockey, Dallas Clark,
Yes,
Heath Miller, Algie Crumpler, Todd Heat. You had a little bit of everybody as far as in there, and Desmond Clark. Remember Desmond Clark from the Chicago Bears? He was there. I
he was
mean,
there. But would you say Witten is better than all those tight ends outside of Gonzalez and Gates?
yes, indeed. But the thing is, when the room is too crowded, when the room is too crowded, although you're America's team, you may not get the attention that you deserve because that room is so crowded as far as tight ends were concerned. I mean, like I stated, you had Dallas Clark, you had a little bit of everybody as far as at the tight end position during the 2000s. Like I said, the 2000s are the greatest era of the tight end, arguably in history. So, I mean, and that's just the big name guys. We're not even talking about the utility guys that you would use. I mean, Gronk was in the 2000s and the 2010. So, and when they transitioned out of the 2000s, you had an even greater tight end. I mean, not to mention you had guys like Doug Jolly from the Oakland Raiders. He was one hell of a tight end. So when you think about guys like that, I mean, the room is so crowded that although you play for the Dallas Cowboys and you're one of the best at your position, you have the second most pro. I think it's the third most Pro Bowls in history. That room is very, very crowded with you in it. And it's kind of hard for people to say, I'm going to pick you first when you go into that room. So I think that's the only reason why he's not remembered as one of the best tight ends of all time, despite his statistics and him playing for America's team, because that tight end room, as far as not just doing his era, but history, is way too crowded. It's like, yeah, I got the pick of the litter when I come in here as far as greatest of all time. I'm not necessarily picking Jason Witten to go first. I'm picking Tony Gonzalez, Mike Ditka's, guys like that. So that's the only reason. But him, undisputed babyface, because he rarely said anything. He was basically the Marvin Harrison of the tight end position during that time. Some of the other guys were flashy. Some of the other guys were celebrating stuff like that. He was relatively silent and let the game speak for itself. So you really can't say too much about him other than he played for America's team and he wasn't. Now he's the best tight end of all time when it comes to Dallas. But like I said, that room as far as tight ends of all time, way too crowded. So that's the reason why people don't talk about him when you think about greatest tight ends of all times or during his era.
I agree. But as far as on and off the football field, babyface, I just laughed because Shannon Sharp he bragged at one point he can outrun Jason Witten in the 40.
Probably could.
I mean, no, I'm talking about Shannon Sharp after his retired career. Now, Jason Witten, the only thing he didn't have was just speed. He did
Yeah.
have route running. He did. He was very crafty for a guy his size at 6'6", 270. I mean, he can make an impact as far as with blocking, and he was always reliable.
Mm-hmm.
He was always reliable. You said he's the Marvin Harrison. He's the Larry Fitzgerald at the tight end spot.
Mm-hmm.
So, got to tip off to Jason Witten. And also, last one, Tupac.
Babyface.
Yes.
Babyface. Look, let's just be real, bro. People are vilified when they're alive because they have different views. People are vilified when they're alive because they have different views. And then later when they're gone, you kind of realize that, you know, they had a point about a lot of stuff that they were saying. A lot of people didn't like what he was saying as far as him being a revolutionary, his mother being a Black Panther,
Panther.
a lot of the stuff that he was rapping about. People don't understand this. Prior to Death Row, look, let's just keep it real. Prior to Death Row, Tupac wasn't on that gangster rap stuff. He wasn't. Prior to Death Row, if you go back and look at his body of work, it's very much he is a conscious rapper.
They don't talk about that enough, champ. They
Yeah,
look at the fact that Pac did write songs, call women the B word and stuff like that. But go back to Brenda's Got a Baby. Or Keep
no,
Your Head Up. Pac actually spoke
trapped.
stuff for women. Remember the song on one of the lyrics from Keep Your Head Up? I wonder how we take from our woman, how we from our
Yeah,
woman.
yeah.
So
But
Pac did a lot of that, and also his acting. That's what's also so unique about him as well, because we've seen a lot of rappers who've been actors, but again, it does help when you are a poet. It does help that you went to the Baltimore Academy School.
mhm,
It does help that you learned, and of course, your mother, Russ Herschel, was a Black Panther. So Pac was very sharp, very eloquent, and also poet. Can write his own, can also write poetry as well. It's just that with Pac, the reason why he joined gangster rap with Death Row because of the whole East Coast West Coast rivalry between he and Biggie and Bad Boy. Going back to the Quad Studio shooting back in November of 1994, this was a few months prior to his incarceration, led to his incarceration for the whole sex abuse situation. But Tupac is a babyface
yeah.
because women loved him. I mean, he is the ladies' man. He is the ladies' man. Every woman loved Tupac, and Tupac loved the woman. And all the. I mean, look, Madonna. He had. I mean, remember he had to take a extra shower just in order for him to meet Madonna while he was in prison.
I ain't gonna lie to you. There's an interview that I'm gonna send to you later, and there's two women in particular. I won't say their names because they might ring a bell to certain members of the audience. But go back and look at there. There was a video. How do you want it? And there was two women in particular in that video, and one of them, beautiful woman, from back in the day, an actor, I will say from back in the day, and she literally broke into tears.
When
And
Tupac passed away.
yeah, about him passing away. And one of them was white and the other one was black. And what surprised me is the other one, the other actor, she was bawling crying. So that just goes to show you how much that the ladies loved Pac, man. And, hey, never forget this. Remember that interview that Andre Rison did that I'm sorry. I never forget that. That was the funniest. I'm like, really? But yeah, but yeah, when he picked up left eye that limo right outside of Andre Rison's house, that was the funniest. I'm like, damn, Pop. But I mean, one of the guys from Goody Mob, I forget his name. I think it's Slim. I think he said, hey man, don't leave. If people talk about Biggie, he'll be the true player. Don't leave your girl around Pac. Pac's still your girl, but
Hmm.
hey, look, Pac was just that cool, man. He was cool without being cool, without trying to be. And one thing that sticks out to me in particular, man, is his interactions with a martial artist that I've known and loved is Michael Jai White. Because if you know Michael Jai White, the guy who played Spawn, played in a lot of martial arts movies, recently got the Bruce Lee Award. He
Rightfully
recently
so.
got the Bruce Lee Award. He is the first black man and the first non-Asian person in order to get that award. That's how much he contributes to the martial arts community and the culture. But I remember him telling me, remember him saying on Vlad TV that he said, me and Tupac used to go around doing schoolhouse rocks, saying little nursery rhymes and stuff like that. And he said, I knew certain cues when certain guys would walk in with Pac because people, me and him was to be sitting around here talking about something that was, totally out of the ordinary. But if I heard him say the F word or the G word or something like that, and I would think to myself, somebody black must have walked in because, usually he didn't talk like that. Remember, he was so intelligent in his ways, especially when he was talking to Michael Jai White. But people used to walk up to Michael Jai White and say, "Hey man, you know your friend looks like Tupac," and he used to have to tell him, "Bro, that's Tupac." So that's how close him and Tupac was. But look, he was intelligent. He was cool without actually trying. He had an aura to him, man. He had an aura to him. And look, man, when when the ladies love you and dudes want to be like you cannot ask for anything better than that, man. And you're intelligent. There's certain times where you're only in a class by yourself in one class. Pac was doing it, and he was an iconic movie star, man. It wasn't just these little Tubi movies, what I like to call them, or
He
what I
did
used to call
Juice, Poetic
them.
Justice,
Yes, it
Above
wasn't.
the Rim,
Yeah,
Gridlocked, Gang Related. But
yes,
Poetic Justice was by far my favorite one from because that showed more of an emotional side from Tupac.
yeah,
Like if you take the time and you walk and do you remember the story with him and Rest Her Soul, Maya Angelou?
yeah,
Remember the story when he was arguing with some other person and then Maya Angelou pulled him aside and talked to him about the history of slavery, like with the auction blocks and stuff like that. And
yes,
then once he started to cry, she used her hands to wipe the tears off her face, off his face.
yeah. Um, man, look, Tupac, man, I'm gonna just be real. Uh,
And plus him in '90s, because remember he and Mike Tyson back in them days.
yeah, look, man, Tupac, Mike Tyson, guys who were edgy got the attention, man. And look, Tupac was he had every look. A lot of guys these days, they want the attention, but they number one, they don't have the talent, they don't have the aura, and they don't have the work ethic. They don't have the work ethic. Guys like Tupac, Wayne, PSP, they work their asses off in order to get where they are. So they have the right to have that aura. When you have no work behind your aura, you don't have no right to have no aura. You don't get to have no aura and you mediocre. These guys were megastars, like I said, PSP included. They have the aura because they work.
I
They
don't want to put
work.
myself in that ballpark.
Well, you ain't got to put yourself. I am, but
Well, okay, fine.
these,
I will admit I work my ass off every single day. I try to do the best I can, but it's one thing to have the aura, but the work ethic, the drive, the determination,
yeah,
and I think that's the thing that people take it for granted. Like with Pac, he was a workaholic, but
yes,
what I missed the most about him was his knowledge, his brilliance, and his activism. And
yeah.
imagine just how the world would be today if we had someone like him with his activism, given who he is, mother being a Black Panther, like he would do a lot for the Black community today.
You know what? One thing I've been waiting on. I don't know if they're because music is kind of like you're not really promoting music. I'm learning a lot about music from the young guys. Shout out to the young guys in the chat who keep me updated on the music. I know Wale's album just came out, pretty
Mm,
good album. Uh, a few good music. Have been waiting ever since the seating president went into the office the first time. I have been waiting for a new political type of group to come out, full of young kids because Public Enemy is still doing their thing, because they made the song State of the Union, you know. And if you ever get a chance, go listen to that song. It's a good song. But what I've been waiting for is another KRS-One, is another Tupac before he went to death row, is another De La Soul. Guys who are political rap, even a Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine, you just can't listen to them. You gotta hear it. So Rage Against the Machine. I've been waiting on groups like that to make a comeback, especially with these type of political climates. Unfortunately, they have not. And if you're in the chat and you know a few, feel free to inbox me and let me listen to them. But I've been waiting for the political rap game like the Public Enemies and things like that to make a comeback because we had that back in the day. What I like to call the conscious rap, even Lupe Fiasco, guys like that. But unfortunately, it hasn't made the comeback that I thought it would make. I thought that would really make a lot of headway, especially when the sitting president made his debut as the president of the country. But Pac was cool. He was he was he had confidence. And you have the right to have that confidence when you look good, when people want to be you, when people can say your rhymes word for word. And people don't understand this, man. He was 25 years old. He was on 24 years old and he died. And there's still
25.
25. Okay, my bad. And still over 300 songs that he's made hasn't been released as of yet. So, yeah, that just goes to show you how much work that you got done. I mean, Pac, man, look, Tupac, uh, the cat, look, the cat. When you talk about casual fans, that's a guy who you say, man, who you can walk up to a person and you say, "Hey, man, you listen to rap," and they say, "I listen to Tupac," and it's like, "Oh, okay, we." That's a good start. But that's the thing. People can say, I listen to rap. Yeah, I listen to Tupac every now and then. Even though, like I said, I've hung out with a lot of heavy metal fans when I was in the army, and they would come into the room and they would come into the barracks or wherever we was at, and I'd be listening to Tupac or whatever, and I was like, "Hey, y'all, I know y'all want to listen to y'all metal." I turn the music on. No, 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 we listen to Tupac. I'm like, "Damn, y'all metal guys." I thought y'all was better. I was like, "No, no, no, we still listen to Tupac or we love Pac." But yeah, and those were heavy metal guys. So that was an aura, man. That was an aura, man. You can't. There's some things money just can't buy, and that aura, that intelligence, that swagger, that work ethic, that it you just can't match that, man. To this day, people have been trying to replicate it, but cannot. They just cannot redo it.